Hey, so today we are going to talk about something that has been around for over 80 years. So chances are you've already run across this, whether it be in business or at school, you will have heard of this before. And like all things that the horsefly goes after, it has problems. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, back in 1943, an American psychologist named Abraham Maslow was trying to figure out the why behind human behaviors. So, what is it that motivates and drives people to do the things that they do? And out of his research and investigations, he came up with this idea that there are 5 steps of things that people need to satisfy one after the other to become a fully actualized individual, fully satisfied individual. Let me share my screen real quick and I'll show you what he came up with. And what's really interesting about what I'm going to share is that although we have all seen, or probably all seen, Maslow's hierarchy of needs in this format, meaning with the pyramid shape, Maslow himself did not put it in a pyramid shape. That came later. So here you can see that the whole idea is that it starts with physical needs, that we all as humans need food, water, and shelter. And lacking those things, we can't progress into some of these higher level needs. And again, the concept is if I have food, water, and shelter, well, then great. I can move on to the next level, which is safety needs. So you can see here level number 2, safety needs, sense of security, familiar people and places. And then once you get that met, then you can go to the next level, which is belonging needs, the need to feel loved and be loved, have community, have friends, etc. Where eventually then you end up in the 5th level, which is self-actualization, this idea that you can be the best that you can possibly be. Now, the problem with all of this is that later research showed that there are some real issues, but again, this has been in place for 80 years, and chances are you've heard about this. So what is it that's wrong with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how did we get here? Well, when this was first introduced, it was really the first model that people latched onto. And again, this is 1943, after World War II, and there is something about this that we look at and just inherently say, yeah, that makes sense. I need to have my physical needs met before I can be the best that I can be. And then it kind of took on a life of its own, sort of like a viral video, I guess, in today's social-driven world. And it just became sort of understood that this was how we as humans function. But I mentioned that since then, a lot of research has gone on that says that, yeah, there are problems with this hierarchy of needs. Including just the basic assumption that you have to have the lower level met before you can get to a higher level. So let's just stop and ponder this, and I realize that this part is not scientific per se, but it does help explain some of what got poked at in further research. So let's say that you're in a tough situation and you're struggling, you have a home, but maybe barely, and you've got a job. Does that mean that you're going to have problems establishing a sense of community, having a group of friends? Does it mean that when you're at work, that you're not going to want to be recognized, or that you're not going to try to be the best that you can be, either in the hopes that you get a promotion or make more money? Well, of course not. The truth of the matter is that we actually go after multiple things depending upon the situation, depending upon who we are as individuals, depending upon what's most important to us And so this idea that you have to satisfy the lower to get to the higher turns out really not to be true. I'm going to stop sharing here. So along comes other researchers later on in life, and one of the theories that has gained a lot of ground here lately is the self-determination theory, that offers some real clear, testable constructs, and more importantly, it is offers better predictability across all cultures, and it doesn't offer a strict tiered structure like what Maslow does. You know, one of the things that they found about Maslow's, in addition to the fact that the tiered approach doesn't really hold out, the other thing that they point out is that there are different cultural aspects that makes Maslow's not exactly hold true. So, you know, even in the United States, of course, we are very diverse, have a very diverse makeup here. And so people who are Scandinavians maybe have a high affinity for community, where maybe people who come from a different background don't. And what they found is that Maslow's model was very Western centric, and so the cultural context really reshaped their ideas about what's important and what drives our behaviors. So as time has gone on, like I said, the researchers have left behind Maslow and gone more towards things like the self-determination theory. But it just seems to hold on forever. And when I think about whether it be in my business life or personal life, times where people bring up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, nobody puts a little asterisk or says, you know, well, this is true mostly, but there are some parts of it that aren't true. And you say, you know, well, after 80 years, come on. I mean, how does it still stick around? Well, one of the reasons really is just inertia. This idea that a body at rest stays at rest, it's really true with the hierarchy of needs. It implanted itself in our cultural memory and has stuck there. And even today, I challenge you, go pick up a business book where they're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whether that be in context of, you know, what do we do for employees in the work environment to make sure that they're engaged and can bring their best self. You almost will never see any commentary that Maslow's hierarchy doesn't hold. It's usually the opposite of that, which says if you want an employee to be fully engaged, you have to make sure that you meet their basic needs first. So that historical inertia has really been difficult to overcome. It's not that it's 100%. You can absolutely find books that will offer some of these other models, but again, majority it's Maslow. I think the other reason why it has stuck around as long as it has is just its simplicity and its visual power. So let's go back again and just look at the visual for Maslow's hierarchy. That sort of pyramid style, I mean, this one's actually color-coded. A lot of them that I see is color-coded, and it's something that, you know, fairly easy to remember. It's physical safety, belonging, recognition, self-actualization. That is hard to overcome with some of these other models that maybe are a little more complex. But I guess at the end of the day, I would rather have something that is hard to remember and accurate than something easy to remember and inaccurate. Yeah, the visual appeal and just how simple it is, I think, has been a reason why it's stuck around. The other thing, you think about timing, right? 1943, after World War II, it's really the great ascendancy of Western civilization. and this idea of Western individualism, autonomy, and personal achievement, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. All of that really fits with Maslow, and so I think people grabbed onto this idea of self-actualization and how important that is, and so yeah, building a work environment around this idea that you need to work hard to get to that fifth level, and the company is going to work really hard to satisfy those lower needs for you so that you can get to that self-actualization. I think that really rang true. So why is the horsefly buzzing around this issue? Well, because first of all, I hate it when we use things that are not backed by data, but just because it's interesting, easy to remember, trendy. Consultants have a tendency to grab onto these sorts of things and push them out there. And if they can get a viral following around it, whether it is supported by the data or not, they run with it. And so when you think about inserting Maslow into the business environment, then what's the downside? What's going to happen? First of all, I would say it's a misprioritization of the interventions that a business is going to use when they're thinking about their employees. So, Maslow is proposing here that there's a literal roadmap of how to intervene with your employees to keep them engaged and focused and be the best they can be. And it's not that easy. And so if you follow that roadmap, you could actually waste budget on basic need perks, for example, that just don't ring true, maybe doesn't at all affect the people who are the high performers in your organization. And so because of that, our ability to really accelerate innovation and get people engaged is missed because we're focusing on engaging people in these lower needs that might not actually ring true and might not move us forward. The other thing that I think is a real problem for Maslow is that this idea that, it's this simple. It really is just this roadmap, this pyramid that you follow this. It's kind of a one-size-fits-all design. And I would argue that, like most things with people, it is not a one-size-fits-all. So imagine an HR department that decides that they're going to roll out an employee development program, and it's built off of this idea of the hierarchy of needs. And so they're going to use this same tiered curriculum for every role, every location, every culture. And you find that it just doesn't work. And I've seen something similar where, somebody worked at one company, they had a program that worked well there, and they bring it over to the other company and expecting that they're going to see the same sort of results, and they don't. And the question is, well, why is that? Is it a function of the culture? Was it, difference in the way that they delivered the materials? And ultimately, it comes down to this idea that one size fits all is almost never a one size fits all. Concepts behind it might be great, but you do have to look at the organization and culture that you're delivering it to. Number three, I would say, is an overemphasis on self-actualization. So if you think of the hierarchy, self-actualization is that top level. It's that fifth level of needs. And companies really center around this idea that, we need to have all of our employees self-actualized, right? We want them to be mindful. We're going to have creativity labs and all kinds of things, assuming that that's the ultimate reward, and that's the way in which we are going to have employees fully engaged and bringing forth innovation in the workplace. Truth of the matter is that those sorts of things, if you're focusing on self-actualization and ignoring other things, employees may be just flat out coping with workload pressure or Maybe job insecurity. You know, if your company is going through a merger or a split or anything like that, a downsizing, those sorts of things, an employee would look at your self-actualization workshops as being very tone deaf, and would immediately erode their trust in the leadership there. And then I guess the last thing that I would say is, and I kind of referred to it earlier, the the model implies almost kind of a static ladder that you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And an HR department, again, my background, for those of you that haven't looked at my profile, my background, I've been in HR for, boy, 30 plus years. But HR could be looking at metrics related to some of those basic needs on the lower part of the pyramid and just say to themselves, you know what, we're not going to launch any of the higher level programs until we get these basic metrics solidified or stabilized. And what that means is if your company is in a rapidly changing environment, it could result in a much slower response to market shifts, technology disruption, or even talent shortages. You know, if you just think back a few short years to the COVID years, talent shortage was a real thing, and so some organizations were stuck in a position that they weren't able to attract talent, partially because of the way that they looked at talent and looked at how to manage and develop talent through Maslow's lens. So, what does this mean for you? What is it that you should be looking for when you're looking through some of these initiatives or development opportunities? My first and foremost thing is, you know, if they're using Maslow, but they're using it with an asterisk or addressing some of these things that we've talked about here, that's probably okay, because it means that they at least are being honest about what some of the shortfalls are, and, you know, are willing to address some of the cultural and individual differences that you would find. If you see something based off of what's called the self-determination theory, that's the one that I really like. There's a lot of research behind that one. It's SDT for short, if you want to look it up. To me, that seems like a better model to be using. And so, you know, if you're building employee development initiatives or looking for, you know, what's the best way to invest in my staff, if you're using a strict Maslow ladder, you probably need to rethink that, because at the end of the day, human motivation is multidimensional, it's culturally variable, and often simultaneous, right? Even in my own life, I don't wait for number one to be filled before I go to number two. So keeping those things in mind, businesses, you can craft programs that really resonate, boost individual performance, and sustain long-term talent health. All right, well, thank you for joining me. Remember, I put out a new one of these every Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe and hit that notification button. All right, thanks a lot. Look forward to seeing you next time.